Hello, today I'll be doing a versus video. This time I'll be comparing two new metal classics. And those albums are Around the Fur by Deftones and Life is Peachy by Korn. So yeah, these are the sophomore albums from these bands, with Life is Peachy that came out back in '96 and with Around the Fur that came out back in '97. And yeah, these are albums that I pretty much grew up with. Korn and Deftones, both being bands that I got into at a fairly young age, and I still enjoy their music all these years later. But let's first talk about Around the Fur by Deftones. And as I've mentioned before on my channel, this is one of my favorite albums of all time, and also my favorite Deftones album. I mean, this album to me really has no skips, and something you do notice with this album is that it's definitely a big leap from the album before it. Of course, that album being Adrenaline, which was their debut album. This album, you definitely notice with the production on this album is that it's not as raw as the production on Adrenaline. The band is still continuing to work with Terry Date on this album, and they also have some of their biggest songs on here. Those, of course, being My Own Summer and Be Quiet and Drive, which are definitely some of the band's best songs. But you have other really great songs on here. Some of the lesser talked about songs on this album are actually pretty good. Again, to me, the album has no skips, but Labia has always been one of my personal favorites on the album. Definitely really dig the heavy riffage in that song. I'd say the same thing with Lotion. But if you're into the more melodic side, you'll enjoy Mascara and Died the Flu, if I pronounced that correctly. But those two songs are also pretty good. You also have the song Rickets, which is maybe one of the heaviest songs on here. Definitely a banger. I mean, the chorus especially definitely goes hard. You also have the song Head Up, which features the legendary Max Cavalera from Sepultura, Soulfly, Cavalera Conspiracy, and Nail Bomb. Definitely a great feature on this song, and Head Up, to no surprise, definitely one of my favorites on the album. One of the heavier songs on the album, which, I mean, how could it not, especially if you got Max Cavalera on the song. But yeah, Head Up, definitely a really great song. And the album closes with MX, which honestly might be one of my favorite album closes from the band. Not talked about as much as some of the other songs on the album, but I personally dig it. If I remember correctly, the female vocals are from Abe's wife. I remember reading about that somewhere. I could be wrong about that, but again, I do remember reading about that somewhere. But either way, MX, definitely a pretty cool song. You do get a hidden track in this album, and that hidden track is called Damone, which, if you haven't heard that song, definitely check it out. Definitely look it up on YouTube, Google, or whatever. Again, if you haven't heard it, or if you haven't heard it in a while, definitely a really cool song. But yeah, you honestly can't go wrong with any of the songs on here. Chino Marino vocally sounds great on this album. You get some solid screams, some solid singing. All around, a really great album. Definitely one of the band's best. But let's go ahead and move on to the other album for this first video, and that is Life is Peachy by Korn. So yeah, their second album with Ross Robinson, and Ross Robinson would come back to the band to produce with Korn 3, Remember Who You Are. But yeah, this album, for me, definitely one of the band's best, I'd say. I wouldn't put it at the top of their discography, but still, again, definitely one of the band's best. I mean, some of the more well-known songs on here are still pretty good to this day, I'd say, like No Place to Hide, and this song, of course, is arguably maybe the biggest song on this album, and it is Adidas right here. Definitely a really great song. It was really cool to see them perform that song live when I saw them with Evanescence and POD last year. But I think this album also has some really good deep cuts too. Some songs that I feel are kind of underrated or kind of overlooked. Some of those songs being Swallow and Mr. Rogers. I really like those songs. You do have a cover of Wicked, originally done by Ice Cube, and I'm not super familiar with a lot of Ice Cube's work, but that is one of the few songs that I do know by him, and I do like the original. But yeah, I do like Korn's cover of the song. Of course, it features Chino from Deftones, and I do like Chino in that song. You also have a cover of Lowrider. But with this album, I will admit, this album to me feels like leans more towards being more of a continuation rather than a big leap from the album before it. And which isn't a bad thing. I still think it's overall, again, one of the band's best, but for me, not as big of a leap as their next album. That album, of course, being Follow the Leader. But yeah, a lot of great songs on here. Some of my favorites being Chi, Swallow, No Place to Hide, Adidas, Good God, which is definitely a banger, really great song. But you also have one of their most depressing or one of the most darkest songs on here. That, of course, being the album closer, "Kill You." But yeah, all around, another pretty good album from Korn. Of course, Jonathan Davis sounds great in the album. I definitely dig what he's doing on Twist. Definitely not something you heard a lot around the time when this album came out. But yeah, it's definitely one of my personal favorite vocalists in the world of rock and metal, Jonathan Davis. Again, really like his voice. But yeah, Life is Peachy, pretty good album. But yeah, if I were to pick which album would win for this versus video, I'd probably go with Around the Fur. For me, that album has no skips. With Life is Peachy, there might be maybe 1 or 2 or 3 songs that are maybe skippable, but again, nothing really bad on that album, I would say. But yeah, both really great albums, but I'm gonna have to go with Around the Fur. But anyways, let me know your thoughts. Let me know which album you like more and all the good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment and like, subscribe. Have a nice day and take care.